alcohol or Adderall of any kind. Third, the prosecution cannot establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Concha had malice aforethought to be charged with this crime. The first person to come to my client's defense is Dr. Casey Burke, a well-respected doctor. He will tell you about his expertise in the field of forensic pathology. He will tell you how he was a coroner for 25 years, has taught seminars, has published a text which has become the standard medical text for schools across the country. He will tell you how this is a case about the victim's self-destructive drinking and weakened heart, not Adderall. You will then hear from Mr. Avery Perkins, the Rosewood High band director. He will tell you how the principal of the school unfairly assumed that the band was related to the drug problem on campus. He will tell you about the prosecution's chief accuser, Alex Weaver, and her strange interactions with other students. He will also tell you about Mrs. Weaver's unusual popularity, even though she was a senior transferring into a new school. You will then hear from Mr. Piper, a program director at Achieve, a nonprofit. He will tell you how Mr. Concha likes to go above and beyond what he needs to do for school. He will tell you how Mr. Concha contributes his time to helping those who can't help themselves. Finally, you will hear from Mr. Concha himself. He will tell you what really happened, in context, something that the prosecution will leave out. He will tell you how he takes Adderall to treat his ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Mr. Concha will tell you how the prosecution's chief accuser, Alex Weaver, threatened him and said she could, quote, get some Addy. He will tell you how the backpack found in his car was not his, and the difference between his and the one found. Prosecution will not meet its burden of overcoming the reasonable doubt that will be presented tonight. It is imperative that my client, Mr. Concha, is found not guilty on the 2 charges brought against him. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ready for our first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people called Dr. Ricky Sanchez to the stand.
Dr. Sanchez, step forward, raise your right hand, and sworn. Well, actually, pre-sworn, I think you present the candidate.
Calling Dr. Ricky Sanchez. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Be seated.
My name is Dr. Ricky Sanchez, S-A-N-C-H-E-Z, and for scoring purposes, my name is Colton Conley.
Once again, for scoring purposes, my name is Shaina Ahuja.
Doctor, could you flip that microphone up a little bit and tap it? Press the red button. Now tap it again.
Good evening, Dr. Sanchez.
Good evening.
Can you please state your age and credentials to the court?
Certainly. I'm 52 years old and currently the chief medical examiner and deputy coroner for Rosewood County.
Can you describe your experience in the coroner's office?
Of course. I've been a licensed pathologist now for 20 years. 15 years ago, I was appointed deputy coroner for Rosewood County. And 8 years ago, I was appointed the county's chief medical examiner.
Dr. Sanchez, on March 27, 2013, did you receive the body of a deceased teenager?
Yes, I did. I received the body of Mr. Jason Johnson after he had died en route to the hospital at 8:53 a.m. He had collapsed in his band's practice at Rosewood High. So I performed the autopsy and did the autopsy report determining the cause of Mr. Johnson's death.
What was the cause of death?
Well, he died from a cardiac arrhythmia, or a lethal change in heart rhythm. This was triggered by Adderall and ultimately led to his death.
How did you determine this, Dr. Sanchez?
Well, during the autopsy, I first took a blood sample that revealed that Mr. Johnson had Adderall in his system, as well as a BAC of 0.05.
Now, let's first talk about the Adderall in the system. What were the effects of Adderall on the victim?
Well, Adderall is a powerful combination of an amphetamine and a dextroamphetamine. This drug can sometimes cause irregular heart palpitations, but unfortunately in Mr. Johnson, it caused his death.
And how did the 0.05 blood alcohol content contribute to Jason Johnson's death?
Well, a 0.05 blood alcohol content was too low to have caused Mr. Johnson's death on its own. However, Since alcohol and Adderall can keep from metabolizing enzymes within the liver, alcohol essentially boosts.
Objection, Your Honor. Expert opinion. While it is stipulated that this witness is a qualified expert, he's not been entered as an expert.
Your response?
Your Honor, it has been stipulated that this witness is an expert, and therefore he can testify to an expert opinion.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
While it is stipulated that he's qualified, sufficient foundation has not been laid for him to be entered as an expert.
How's foundation lacking?
While his credentials do say that he's a licensed pathologist, there's nothing about his education or background that has been testified.
Your response?
Your Honor, at the beginning of Dr. Sanchez's testimony, he stated his credentials for the court.
They're satisfactory. Objections overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you finish your response, Dr. Sanchez?
No. As I was saying, alcohol basically increases the effects of Adderall, so it's more powerful.
Now, did Jason Johnson have any other conditions that could have contributed to his death?
Yes, I learned that Mr. Johnson had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM as we doctors call it.
And what was HCM's effect on the victim?
Well, HCM is a congenital heart defect that causes the walls of the left ventricle to thicken. This can block blood flow as it passes through the heart, and as a result, cardiac arrhythmias are a common symptom of HCM. HCM symptoms are also exacerbated by the use of alcohol and especially amphetamines such as Adderall.
So, Dr. Sanchez, in your medical opinion, what caused the cardiac arrhythmia that resulted in Jason Johnson's death?
It was the Adderall in Mr. Johnson's system that triggered his death.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. I have no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Dr. Sanchez.
Good evening.
You have not published a college textbook in forensic pathology, correct?
No, I consider myself married to my work, and I don't have time to publish introductory texts as Mr.
You have
Birch
not
does.
published 9 articles in professional journals, have you?
No, I'm very busy with all my
Objection,
work.
Your Honor, relevance?
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
The mechanism of death which caused Jason Johnson to die was a cardiac arrhythmia, correct?
Yes, it was, which caused a cardiac arrest and then his death.
And the blood test revealed a BAC level of 0.05, correct?
Yes, there was a relatively low amount of alcohol in Mr. Johnson's system.
Now, the maximum safe prescription level of Adderall is 60 milligrams per day, correct?
Now, counsel, are you talking about the maximum safe prescription of Adderall for Mr. Johnson or the average healthy teenager? Because those are two completely different things.
The maximum prescription dose is 60 milligrams per day. Is that correct?
For the healthy teenager?
For anyone.
Well, only for the healthy teenager, it's 60 milligrams.
However, the maximum safe prescribed dose is 60 milligrams. Is that
For a
correct?
healthy teenager, not for Mr. Johnson.
Now, Jason suffered from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Is this correct?
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, yes.
Okay. Now, alcohol can exacerbate the effects of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Is this correct?
Yes, if alcohol comes in high enough quantities, it can.
And a vasospasm is the sudden narrowing of one of the coronary arteries. Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Sanchez, what were the side effects of Adderall on the victim?
Well, Adderall caused the...
Objection, Your Honor. Outside scope of cross-examination.
Your response?
Your Honor, opposing counsel referred to the Adderall in Jason Johnson's system, and I'm using the alcohol to relate it to the effects of Adderall.
Objections overruled. This is a fair question.
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you re-ask the question?
Yes, what were the effects of alcohol on the victim?
Well, alcohol was not in a high enough quantity to have caused Mr. Johnson's death on its own. It could have only increased the effects of the Adderall in Mr. Johnson's system.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. Your Honor, may this witness be excused from the stand?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Next witness.
At this time, Your Honor, the people call Riley McAllister to the stand.
Calling Riley McAllister to the stand. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Be seated.
Thank you.
Where you begin, Mr. Dale, could you get the door, please?
My name is Riley McAllister, McAlister, and for scoring purposes, my name is Mackenzie Bressie. Once again, for scoring purposes, my name is Catherine Hurd. May I proceed? Good evening, Ms. McAllister.
Good evening, Miss Hurd.
Please tell the court what you do for a living.
I'm the principal of Rosewood High School.
Could you tell the court a little bit about Rosewood High School?
We feel that Rosewood is an exemplary school. However, like many other schools, we've had a few drug problems that have resulted in several serious incidents.
And as principal, have you taken any actions to prevent further drug-related incidents at Rosewood?
Of course, we decided to implement a zero-tolerance drug policy at Rosewood. In order to do so, I first took extensive professional development courses on the topic of student drug use over the summer. Also, I requested that an
Your Honor.
undercover...
Meredith?
Break it down.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. McAllister, what specific actions did you take to prevent further drug-related issues at Rosewood?
Like I said, I took courses. I also requested that an undercover officer investigate student drug use at our school.
Who did you hire, or excuse me, who did you arrange to have come look under, excuse me, who did you arrange to come investigate the drug-related issue at Rosewood?
Officer Doherty.
And what did Officer Doherty do undercover at Rosewood?
He enrolled at Rosewood under the alias Sam Shumway. He took a few classes and also joined the school marching band, all the while looking out for any suspicious behavior.
I want to talk about the day that Jason Johnson collapsed at Rosewood. Where were you when you found out that something had happened to Jason?
I was in my office when the band teacher came in and informed me that he had collapsed.
And after learning that information, what did you do next?
First, I made sure that the paramedics had already been contacted, and then I immediately called his parents.
Then what did you do?
I asked Officer Doherty to please come into my office, and we talked about how important it was that he find out if Jason Johnson's death was in any way related to the ongoing drug problem at our school.
Did you learn any information later that day about Jason Johnson's death?
Yes, Alex Weaver came into my office and shared some very important information with me.
After learning that information, what did you then do?
Based on the information I gained in that conversation, I asked Officer Doherty to please look through Ray Concha's car for any evidence that would suggest that he was selling drugs.
Were you present when Officer Doherty searched the defendant's car?
Yes, I was.
After Officer Doherty searched the defendant's car, what did you do next?
I called Ray Concha down to the parking lot where Officer Doherty was waiting with his car.
And when you reached the parking lot, did the defendant say anything?
Yes, he exclaimed, "Oh no."
Then what happened?
Officer Doherty then identified himself as a police officer and arrested him.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. And for scoring purposes, once again, my name is Peter Cantana.
Good evening, Mrs. McAllister.
Good evening.
You're aware of a drug problem at your campus, correct?
Yes, unfortunately.
And you've taken a drug prevention class, correct?
Yes, extensive classes.
In the first time that you confronted this issue at your school, you confronted the band team, correct?
They were the first class that I spoke to, yes.
And you had a police officer infiltrate the band, correct?
No.
You did not hire a principal, a officer to infiltrate the band.
I hired an officer, but not to investigate the band program. He was looking at the entire school for any suspicious behavior.
Really? So you're telling me that the officer searched other parts of the school for drugs, correct?
Yes, he enrolled in classes at the school, all the while looking for suspicious behavior. He also joined the band program, but he was not specifically targeting the band program.
Your Honor, I like to call it creating material fact. In the fact pattern, it says that the officer specifically enrolled in a band class to search for drugs in the band class and did not search any other parts of the school for drugs.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
In this witness's statement, it states that Officer Doherty enrolled as a student and specifically did join the band program, looking out for suspicious behavior as a whole. This witness has not contradicted her witness statement, for she never asked Officer Doherty to infiltrate the marching band, as opposing counsel suggested.
What about the aspect of searching your other parts of the school?
Your Honor, in her statement, she does specifically state, while he was looking out for suspicious behavior among the entirety of the school, though he did specifically join the band program and was looking for information there too.
Your Honor, I may recall, I don't believe anywhere within her testimony that she says that the officer specifically searched any other parts of the school for drug problems with drugs.
Now, to that narrow phrase, the objection sustained, otherwise overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mrs. McAllister, you had a officer infiltrate the band, correct?
He enrolled in the band and was looking for suspicious behavior there as well.
As well. So then you're aware of 6 other problems related to drugs on campus, correct?
Yes,
And your officer didn't search any other part of the campus for drugs, correct?
he was enrolled in classes.
However, he was specifically entailing on the band class, correct?
He was in the band as well.
Specifically searching the band for drugs related to people within the band, correct?
The search that Officer Doherty conducted was his own business. I simply requested that he come to the school. He did enroll in the marching band and look there as well.
However, you had suspicions that there was problems with drugs in the band, correct?
Yes, I did.
So then it must be part of your business if there's problems going on at your school with drugs then, correct?
Well, I told Officer Doherty about my suspicions, but his search was up to what he wanted to do.
And your suspicions, so you did have suspicions that there were drugs within the band, correct?
Absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, I don't believe I've actually asked that
That's
question.
close, but not quite. Overruled.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Your Honor, brief reader. Ms. McAllister, was Ray Concha in the band at your school?
Yes, he was.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have nothing further. May this witness be excused?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The people call Officer Robin Doherty to stand.
Calling Officer Robin Doherty to the stand. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Be seated.
My name is Officer Robin Doherty, D-O-H-E-R-T-Y, and for scoring purposes, my name is Chris Crouch.
Once again, my name is Kate Park.
Your Honor, before I proceed, may I request a time check?
Yes.
The prosecution has 7 minutes and 55 seconds remaining for direct and redirect examination. Would the defense like a time check as well?
Yes, we would, please.
The defense has 6 minutes and 24 seconds remaining for cross-examination.
Thank you.
We'd like the court to note stipulation 15, which states that Officer Doherty is a qualified expert in drug recognition and drug sales. May I proceed?
Yes.
Good evening, Officer Doherty.
Good evening, Ms. Park.
Will you please state your occupation for the court?
Yes, I'm a police officer for Rosewood County.
And how did you become involved in this case?
Rosewood High School had a serious drug problem, so my supervisor recruited me to serve as an undercover officer with the alias Sam Shumway. I'm 28, but people say I look young for my age.
What did you do after you enrolled at Rosewood High?
Principal McAllister was suspicious that the source of the drugs is coming from the marching band. I have some experience as a drummer, so I tried out, and luckily I made it, which was fun. I didn't get to do that my first time in high school.
Did you get to know any members of the band?
Yes, I got to know Alex Weaver, Jason Johnson, and Ray Concha, who's also a drummer.
And do you see Mr. Concha in court today?
I do. He is at the end of the defense table wearing a yellow tie.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Officer Doherty has correctly identified the defendant in this case, Mr. Concha.
We will so reflect.
Officer, I want to talk about February 17th. Do you remember that day?
I do.
What happened?
Mr. Johnson didn't show up to band practice that day. I asked where he was, and Mr. Concha said Jason just couldn't keep up with Addie.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
In the mock trial rules, there's a hearsay exception admission by a party opponent. Any statement made by the defendant, Mr. Concha, is admissible in court today when used by the people.
You wish to be heard?
No, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled.
Thank you.
Officer, what did the defendant say?
At that point, Mr. Concha said Jason just couldn't keep up with Addie.
What is Addie?
Addie's a slang term for Adderall, and I knew that, but I played dumb and asked, "Who's Addie?"
And what did the defendant say?
Mr. Concha said, "Addie's Adderall, Shumway. Smart pills. You interested in that stuff? I have a hookup."
Did you suspect anything from this admission?
I started to form the opinion that Mr. Concha either was the dealer or knew the dealer.
Did you find any other evidence to suggest that Mr. Concha was the dealer?
Yes, I was shopping on February 22nd in Diamond Heights, and I saw Mr. Concha shopping there.
What happened next?
After I checked out, I looked inside of Mr. Concha's car.
And what did you see?
I saw a blue backpack with a jacket draped over it.
Officer Doherty, have you ever seen Mr. Concha carry around a blue backpack?
Yes, pretty much all the time.
Did you see anything else in Mr. Concha's car?
I did. I saw a roll of money, a piece of paper with words on one side and numbers on the other side, appearing to be a ledger, and I also saw a bag with 5 pills that appeared to be Adderall.
Okay, let's talk about the day Jason Johnson died, March 27th. Do you remember that day?
I do.
And what happened?
Well, after Mr. Johnson died, Principal McAllister asked me to find out if Mr. Johnson had purchased any stimulants that day.
So did you find out if Mr. Johnson had purchased any stimulants that day?
I did. Alex Weaver came forth and told me and Principal McAllister that she had seen Mr. Concha use a handshake to give pills to Mr. Johnson.
Is it significant that the defendant and Mr. Johnson shook hands just hours before Mr. Johnson died?
It is. Handshaking is how drug dealers will pass drugs and receive money.
Okay, what happened next, officer?
I went to go search Mr. Concha's car, and in the rear luggage area, I found a blue backpack and bags and bottles of pills.
Your Honor, permission for Officer Doherty to approach who has been previously marked as Exhibit A and B.
Yes.
Officer, do you recognize these 2 photos?
I do. Exhibit A is a photo of the items as I found them in Mr. Concha's car, and Exhibit B is a photo of the pills, prescription bottles, and cash I found in Mr. Concha's car.
And do they accurately depict what you found in the defendant's car?
Certainly. I took these photos myself.
Your Honor, the people would like to move Exhibit A and B into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No, no.
And the other are admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Officer Doherty, what was in the blue backpack?
Inside the blue backpack, there were 2 prescription bottles containing a total of 83 20-milligram Adderall pills.
Did you find anything else in the defendant's car?
I did. I found a roll of money adding up to $180, and I found 6 bags with 5 Adderall pills each. I counted.
And as an expert in drug sales, is it significant that there were bags each with 5 pills of Adderall in them?
It is. This is a common strategy that high schoolers will use to divide and distribute drugs. Someone taking Adderall for prescription purposes would not divide them up like this.
So what did you conclude from finding these items in the defendant's car?
I concluded that Mr. Concha possessed these items with the intent to sell them.
And what happened next?
I gave Mr. Concha his Miranda warnings and arrested him.
Objection, Your Honor. Expert opinion. The expert has been stipulated as being qualified as an expert, does not been entered into the court script as an expert opinion.
Your Honor, may I respond? By stipulating that Officer Doherty is a qualified expert in drug recognition and drug sales, they have agreed that this witness can testify to expert opinions.
Objection is overruled.
Officer Doherty, what happened next?
I gave Mr. Concha his Miranda warnings and arrested him for the murder of Jason Johnson and possession of drugs for sale.
Thank you, officer. I have nothing further at this time. May this witness resume his seat at the witness stand?
Please.
Thank you.
Cross round?
Yes,
And once again, my name is Peter Campan. Good evening, officer.
Good evening.
You have extensive training in drug recognition, correct?
Yes, I do. I'm recognized as an expert in drug recognition and sales.
And you were hired by Principal McAllister to infiltrate the band, correct?
No, I wasn't hired. I was conducting my own investigation at the school.
So you were not paid for by the school to enter the band, and search for drugs?
No, I'm paid by the police department.
You were paid by the police department. So you were not hired by Principal McAllister to search the band for drugs, or to be enrolled as a student for drugs?
Well, as an officer, I was doing my job and getting paid for doing my job.
However, the school did not specifically hire you to infiltrate the band and to enroll as a student at Rosewood?
No, they arranged for me to investigate the school undercover.
Your Honor, I'd like to bring your attention to the witness's testimony. and on lines 17 through 18, he specifically says that he was hired by Principal McAllister, and it's reasonable inference to suggest that the school paid money for for the officer to enroll in that school.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yeah.
Opposing counsel misled the court in reading on page 23, line 17. On that line, it actually says, only Principal Riley McAllister knew my true identity. It does not say that Mr. Riley McAllister hired the officer. In fact, on line 9, the paragraph above, it says, my supervisor recruited me to serve as an undercover officer. This witness has not contradicted his testimony. The police department, his supervisor recruited him, and the school requested the officer. They did not hire him.
And Pat, you wish to be heard?
No, Your Honor. I would like to continue on.
Objection overruled.
Thank you. So you did those search the school for drugs, correct? You were specifically enrolled in the band to search for drugs, correct?
Principal McAllister was suspicious that the source of the drugs was coming from the band,